many directions and many places. Its reach has extended so much with the help of force multipliers. And we have been asking for these force multipliers 25 years ago when I was commanding Ambala. Today, at 25 years later, we do have them now. But the thinking must change rapidly, and we must get ahead of the problem, not behind the problem. You have the force multipliers, but they are not adequate. You have the number of squadrons, but they are totally inadequate. According to my thinking today, the force should go up to 60 squadrons, not remain 45 for the last 30-40 years. It should have gone up to 60, and by the end of the century to 100 squadrons.
For
numbers will matter.
For India's size and its regional
the responsibilities have increased. Your coastal line is so long, your trade routes are such, your enemies are so many around you. You got to look all around and then decide the force level.
But one of the enemy, of course, is money. We don't have.
We did not have in the past. But today we are doing well, and the nation should tighten the belt to produce money for the defense, because integrity of the country is the first requirement for every national.
I asked the Chief of Air Staff, Air Chief Marshal S.P. Tyagi, what in his view was his strategic vision of the Air Force.
Indian Air Force's strategic vision is based on India's national vision. As we grow economically, besides the conventional well-known threats, we will find that Indian Air Force will have to look at new security interests of India. These security interests will basically be protection of our economic interests, protection of our trade, protection of our energy interests. This would require Indian Air Force to operate beyond the shores of India. We are already a transoceanic Air Force. Therefore, our strategic vision is one of strategic reach. We should be able to reach far distances to protect and project Indian interests. Therefore, Indian Air Force of the future will require aircraft with long ranges, will require flight refueling aircraft. When we operate thousands of miles away from the shores, to control these forces sitting in Delhi, we will have to have a strong network. Therefore, Indian Air Force will become a net-centric force. To do this, we will obviously require to exploit the medium of space, and therefore it is necessary that we become a major aerospace power. In short, Indian Air Force must have strategic reach, must be a net-centric force, and must be a major aerospace power.
Kapil, you heard the Air Chief talk about vision of the future. Do we have a problem about pilots, trained pilots? You know, a lot of people are going into the airlines, and there are declining number of squadrons. But overall, is there a problem of pilots in the Indian Air Force?
Yes, sir, I do think so, because we need to attract the right candidates to today's Air Force, and today's job of a pilot is not just just moving a yoke around and moving some levers here and there. The candidate you're attracting is also being wooed by companies such as Infosys, Wipro, Satyam, your IT powerhouses. So today's candidate has to be of that caliber, because in today's such an IT dense environment, such an informational technology, and everything requires some application of computing, some application, like the chief said, that he wants to move to a net-centric force. So yes, you do have to attract such type of students.
The right quality.
The quality, yes. I mean, your competitor, when you go out to recruit people into your force, are these companies, Infosys, your Mahindra, Tatas, and so on. And as for the pilot shortage in the Air Force, which there were a lot of reports recently about, these, I mean, I think it was blown out of proportion. There is a certain level of shortage, but it's not a serious matter. It's not a serious matter at all.
Right. Pushpindar, on the Air Force and defense diplomacy, the Air Force is doing a series of exercises with different countries. Would you take us through their programs in the last 2 years?
I think there have been some spectacular results achieved, and we benchmarked against some of the world's best air forces. As we speak today, there is an exercise going on between the Indian Air Force and the Royal Air Force, which is particularly interesting because I think this is a return match 74 years later. But the first major exercise was COPE India in 2004 with the United States Air Force, followed by the Indian Air Force sending Jaguars halfway around the world to take part in an exercise in Alaska with the United States. That was a superb feat of taking 6 Jaguars and their refueling tankers and supporting aircraft halfway around the world and back on time. Then of course we've exercised with the Singaporeans, the South Africans, and we're doing it again with, I believe, the United States.
Kapil, I believe we may have a problem of selecting the next air chief.
I don't think so. Historically, the Air Force has always been led by very competent people. So it's a case of may the best person get the job.
So there will be no controversy whether he's a helicopter pilot or...
I don't think so. As an institution, the Air Force is too mature and too big.
So you think it's the media that is already creating the problem, or that might create the problem for the future?
Yes, sir, as always, yes.
Before we end this program, take a look at the series of exercises the Indian Air Force has done with other countries.
IAF Joint Training Exercises 2004 to 2005 Cooperative COPE Thunder and COPE India with the United States. 2005 Exercise Golden Eagle with South Africa. 2005 Exercise Garuda with France. 2006 Exercise Syndex 1 and 2 with Singapore. 2006 Exercise Indradhanush with UK.
We've come to the end of our time. Thank you very much, the panel. The Air Force, as you have just heard from our panelists, may have a few problems, but is on the path of rectification and is in no immediate risk of losing its primacy in the region. Some emergency measures are afoot to ensure that the IAF continues to rule the skies. That's all for now. Thanks for Defence watching. Till next time, same time, goodbye and namaskar.